What's up, YouTube? Wolf190D back with another video on this Whirlwind Deathblow Barbarian combination. Now, for those of you that are still looking at trying to level more efficiently and stuff, do not forget to do this one simple little thing. Chug a potion, or an elixir rather, before you start delving into a dungeon or any area really. It's actually really solid advice. Keep potions or keep an elixir active at all times. So let's get down to business. And yes, you'll notice that the Deathblow really fantastic means of fury generation for these smaller groups. See, I'm already tapped out. And you'll notice when I'm swinging it, I'm trying to keep clusters of little guys active while I do it. Or rather, keep clusters of guys within the range of the attack. Now, the lunging strike does, as you can see, give you much better mobility. Now, since the Deathblow is a move that you want to try to finish people with, you want to try to make it a sort of a finishing move that also ramps up your fury. Be sure you have it just set to automatic. I have mine set to automatic. The reason for that, simply to do the most raw damage possible. But there again, as it's also secondarily a really good means of generating that fury for your Barbarian, especially if you're finding yourself fury starved, as a lot of people do early on. Having that follow-up attack on it is, of course, going to allow you to generate massive amounts of fury in a very short amount of time. So yes, keep your Whirlwind, but Whirlwind through the group, and you see that Whirlwind through the group, and then turn around and slap with that Deathblow. All right, and you'll not only clear rooms a lot faster, but you will keep that fury ramped up nice and tight. So yes, Whirlwind, very important for dealing all that damage. You get the nice crowd control bonus, especially if you're using the and then at this point, it doesn't even matter what two-handed weapon, even dual-wield weapon that you're using for your Whirlwind. It doesn't matter because you're causing that hamstring ability to kick in, because the two-handed sword technique does give you bleed damage. Does make them bleed. They don't have to bleed a lot. This isn't a build that's focusing on causing a butt-ton load of bleed damage. You know, it works early game, especially if you're working through the campaign, trying to get to level 40, maybe even to level 50. It would be fairly effective. But you really the point of having that bleed damage is just simply to get the hamstring to kick in. It slows enemies down, and then of course you can have all of those nice bonus effects from crowd control that's done on top of that. So let's quickly clean this up. And the lunging strike allows you to chase down those pesky archers too. So also that is something worth bearing in mind.
I need time to do that.
Yeah, that set of boots, I found this set of boots that gives me plus one charge, not chance, charge to weapon mastery skills, which is very nice. And then of course, and you'll notice I really didn't even use shouts throughout all of that.
I'm low on fury.
I've barely used shouts. Probably a bad idea, but hey, they weren't major bosses, so anyway, just kind of walking you guys through, more or less, some things that you can do. And see, that's why I like to keep the rallying cry there on standby. because it's really good about breaking those crowd controlled effects. Oh god, this is going to be a little bit longer of a dungeon image. Get out of that stupid thing. Yeah, the Deathblow, I just, you know, I understand the schools of thought having other weapon masteries and stuff set, but I'm really liking the way that the Deathblow stacks with everything else that we're doing. I mean, theoretically, you could just, you could have that as your primary business dealer. The problem with that, though, is that I found you can get bogged down, especially with larger groups. You can get really bogged down because if you go to swing and attack, and sometimes this happens, you aim at one guy, it hits somebody completely different. You can get really bogged down with it. So it's nice to have this set up with Whirlwind, because Whirlwind actually allows you to attack your way out of really, really bad spots. And I mean some really bad spots. But there you go. See, that Deathblow ability crushes massive groups of those little guys. And see, frozen. Oops, I'm stuck. Okay, no, I'm not. Yep. Okay, we're stuck again. So hey, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, especially if you're trying to speed your way through these things. Don't be afraid, especially, to keep the your crowd control breaks on standby. Berserk, Rallying Cry. These are really nice things to have just handy in the event that you have something like this happen. But it's okay; they're all dead. So, timing, pretty important with the use of your abilities. So yeah, I'm liking to run through crowds of these little guys, smash up a bunch of them with this Deathblow, and see, my Fury's pretty well capped out. Whirlwind a few times, Deathblow, just crush guys, crush your way out. Keep your Fury up, right? That's going to allow you to Whirlwind more through the really, really big crowds. And I like to try, if you haven't noticed, what I like to try to do is I like to try to finish the little minions, especially at the end of a mob. I like to try to finish it with that Deathblow. Why? Cap off your Fury, and then you move on to the next one. And yeah, sometimes he gets, sometimes you'll notice that they kind of get like, I don't know, stuck, almost.
I'm low on fury.
Just find out where the weak guys are in the crowd. Crush them with that Deathblow, get your Fury back up. Okay, I'm going to need some more Fury generation here. Need a little bit more. Okay. But that's going to be the big thing. Okay, did I just finish this one? I think I did. So, let's go back to town. And I'm going to walk over gear this time. In my previous video, I focused mainly on skills. This time I'm going to focus on gearing. Maybe offer up some thoughts to help you guys out. Now, let's take a look at the gear. All right, so for a helm, I still just have a Sacred Rare helm, but it does offer up armor. It does give cooldown reduction, which is why if, you know, I miss with my Deathblow, it's not at it's not over 14 seconds on its cooldown. Also gives the strength. It's not bad, but I haven't found anything that I really like better. For the chest piece, this is kind of an important one. You do want a chest piece that damaging an elite grants you a barrier, all right? And this was actually the best roll that I've seen so far. Again, take a look. My character's only level 55. So this is the best one I've found so far, but you do want that one that gives you the barrier. The bubble is nice, and you probably noticed that I've been popping bubbles too. I have that on another piece of gear somewhere. But the barrier itself is really nice because it stays with you for 10 seconds. So you can kind of dance around and do what you do instead of trying to hide in that bubble and recover a little bit. Though the bubble ability is not bad either because what it does do is knock back enemies. So it's nice to have if you want some breathing room. Though honestly, with the Whirlwind build, those of you that run it, no, you don't really want breathing room. You want them clustered around you as much as possible. The other stats on this, I mean, okay, the damage reduction from close enemies is great. The shadow resistance is not fantastic. 2 ranks of challenging shout. I don't even use challenging shout, but it does give 1 to rallying cry, which I like to stack on rallying cry if I can. It's just more resource generation, more resource generation, more resource generation. So until I find something better, this has kind of been my go-to chess piece. The gauntlets that I have. Again, not fantastic. Increased crit strike chance and increased crit strike, and a further increased crit strike chance against injured enemies. I did like those 2 stats. Plus, I did imprint this with the ability to do more damage, more critical strike chance anyway against injured enemies. And while I'm healthy, of course, I do more crowd control duration. So that's only further lengthening how long enemies are hamstringed, which of course there are other abilities that are going to feed off of that. More damage against enemies that are slowed. So the longer they are slowed, the more damage you can deal to them. I did find that to be pretty effective for the time being. There's the bubble ability. So when hit while not healthy, magical bubble for 4 seconds. Okay, players that are in the bubble are immune for those 4 seconds. So it's kind of nice. It's not great. What I did like about these though, the stats, some of the stats anyway. 3.4% damage reduction. Hey, overall damage reduction, not just from close enemies, but overall damage reduction. That was very, very nice. The healing received, okay, it's a nice perk, but it's not great. There are others that I've been on the lookout for. And honestly, I guess if I find some better pants along the way, then of course I'm going to trade out or swap out for those. Now the boots, these were kind of a really good find. The weapon mastery skills have an additional charge. This is very, very nice for that Deathblow. Again, I can't stress that enough. Deathblow is really good if you get good at using it, because Deathblow resets its cooldown if it kills an enemy. And again, it has a very, very small area of damage, but it does do an area of damage. It's not just a single target. So it's very nice to look at that. The movement speed after killing an elite is nice. 65% movement speed, only for 1 second, of course, but using evade grants you a really nice movement bump. So that's also, you know, mobility is really important. And again, it's kind of why on the skill tree side of things, I've tried. I mean, you know, I've used Frenzy in the past. Diablo 2, I love my Frenzy Barb in Diablo 2. Diablo 3, the Frenzy ability had something really nice attached to it that would stack more charges of Frenzy, or Frenzy would last longer. There was something about that. Frenzy worked really well even Diablo 3, but so mobility, and again, that's why I've stuck with the lunging strike. You could see I was able to pop really quickly to somewhat distant enemies. It's not a long range ability, but nonetheless. The intelligence, and I'm not really concerned with the intelligence on this. I might try to re-roll that at some point. The dexterity is good, crit strike chance, and what else does dexterity do again on the Barbarian? Crit strike chance and dodge chance. So yeah, you're looking at more critical strike and maybe even a small increase in the ability to dodge, which is nice. And this also does a base 4% dodge increase chance. That's also nice. And then of course this also has lucky hit, which Damaging enemy with a weapon mastery skill has a chance to, up to 40% chance to stun them. So that's also nice to have, especially with using this Deathblow ability the way I do in crowds, right? So there's that. The mace, okay, it's nothing fancy. It's a sacred sacred rare two-handed mace. All right, but what it does is damage to close enemies, which with a barbarian, you're always close. Barbarians don't have ranged abilities in this one, at least not that I've seen. Increase the vulnerable damage, and of course, ultimate skill damage, which I don't know that Wrath of the Berserker deals direct damage, so I don't know how important that is with how I have this guy set up. A couple of sacred rare swords. I'm liking keeping the swords handy for one particular reason, actually, is my lunging strike. I've actually manually set it to use dual wield. Now, the reason for that is because, well, they attack faster, for one. They attack a lot faster. So it seems like it helps with your ability to slip through crowds of guys a lot better when you're attacking from one side of the other to crowds of enemies with that lunging strike, or chasing down those pesky little archers that seem to crop up all the time. I don't know why, but ranged attacks seem to do a lot of damage to barbarians. That's just been my personal experience. Hey, correct me if I'm wrong. Is there anything I can do to that? Or do about that? Sorry. Is there anything I can do about that? Hey, if you know better, please let me know. So anyway, I'm using that, and the reason for that is, where do I go for, expertise, duh. The reason for that is because I'm trying to ramp this up. Now, when using two-handed swords, okay, lucky hit's going to give you 10% chance to gain 5 fury when hitting a crowd-controlled enemy. And hey, remember, we're hamstringing the hell out of guys. We're hamstringing the hell out of guys with this particular build's setup, right? So you do want to, it is something worth considering, all right? And it doubles. So not only are you getting 10%, if you're using 2 one-handed swords, you're getting 20% chance. And then of course, once I get this thing to rank 10, killing a crowd control enemy grants 15% increased attack speed for 3 seconds. So hey, increased attack speed is always nice. So two-handed swords, again, damage to close enemies, damage to vulnerable enemies, ups the strength. Okay, strength on the barbarian is going to increase skill damage and armor. All right, so any bumps you can get to strength, yeah, they are useful, right? Also, on this other one, I have lucky hit. Okay, 23 to all stats. Okay, it's not great, but also 7.1% damage over time, which even though we're not causing a lot of bleed damage with this build, it's still beneficial because, hey, it's just going to be that much more bleed damage that they're taking. For the two-handed slashing, I currently have an axe. Now, this is where things can kind of get a little interesting because, okay, my technique, two-handed sword, 20% direct damage is inflicted as bleed. It's not a lot, but it's going to hamstring, okay? Also, with the two-handed sword, you're getting at rank, or not, it's one-handed sword. With two-handed swords, you're also dealing 30% increased bleed damage for 5 seconds after killing an enemy. Okay, so this is why I like to have this in the technique slot, is because, again, it doesn't matter now. I can use the most powerful two-handed slashing weapon that I come across, and I'm still getting those bleed effects. That doesn't matter. But the reason for axes, and I really like this school of thought too, so the reason for favoring axes currently in that two-hand slot, and of course I can swap this out, so if I find a two-handed sword that's fantastic, I could swip over to two-handed axe expertise and get the best of both worlds. It seems to be that's how it's doing. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems to be what's happening. So with the two-handed axes, you're doing 15% increased damage to vulnerable enemies, right? And remember, if you have pressure point set, you're getting up to 30% chance to make enemies vulnerable with Whirlwind, okay? So if you're using a two-handed axe stacked with a two-handed sword, or a two-handed sword stacked with the two-handed axe technique, then you're getting the best of both of these worlds, right? So 15% increased damage to vulnerable enemies, very, very nice. But also at rank 10, we're getting increased critical strike chance, 10% increased critical strike chance against vulnerable enemies. So both of these are definitely worth examining as far as that's concerned. So two-handed axe, okay, does 25.2% damage to bleeding enemies. Hey, how many enemies are we making bleed? All of them, right? It also does 56% damage to healthy enemies, which is actually really nice. Increase the core skill damage, and of course, increased damage to slowed enemies. So this is actually has really preferable stats for this particular build. And of course, critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. I've got emeralds in all of these. I'm starting to toy around with the idea of maybe sapphires too, though. And this is another thought. Sapphires are going to increase critical strike damage to crowd-controlled enemies. Okay? So it's another thought. It's something else you can do. Really, the only thing I would recommend sticking in your gems as a barbarian are skulls. Skulls bump your armor. Boom. Plain and simple. But anyway, I do have the Mother's Embrace. It's the best ring I've found in this slot for the time being. I'm probably going to come off of it eventually. I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but nonetheless, 13 to all stats. Okay, that's nice. Lucky hit chance. Okay, that's nice. Critical strike damage and overpower damage, however, those are sounding a little better. So, like to have that plus the perk that came off of this. If a core skill hits 5 or more enemies, 40% of the resource cost is refunded. Now, I'm not sure how this stacks with Whirlwind. It seems like this has been rather beneficial to help keep that fury level up nice and high. But hey, if you know for sure better, leave a comment. Let me know. Let the viewers know. All right, moving on to the next one. I have just a legendary ring. I did have a ring imbued with the ability, and it's a very, very nice ability for barbarians. Is that one that generates 2 fury per second while a shout is active. Okay, 2 fury per second while a shout is active. Okay, so and I think it actually stacks. So if you have 2 shouts active at the same time, it's going to do 4, right? I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the way that works. But I did find this one killing an enemy with a core skill refunds 14% of its base fury cost. The ring was just better than the one I was wearing. I mean, for the overpower and vulnerable damage alone, plus the damage to crowd-controlled enemies, the barrier generation, I'm not sure how exactly that stacks with this barrier that the chest piece produces. I'm not sure how that stacks. So there is that. And anyway, for the amulet, I also found this is actually one that I kind of actually like for this build, because you heal 35 life per second for each close enemy for up to 204 life per second. That's a lot of life per second. It'll help to keep you alive. So if you come across this one, might want to hang on to it. If nothing else, hang on to the aspect. It could prove to be very useful. So as I progress through this, I am of course going to be on the lookout for better abilities that come off of these, but nonetheless. So thanks for stopping by, YouTube. I hope you found this information useful, and if you're wondering about particulars about skill sets in Paragon, please check out my previous video, the update on the Whirlwind Deathblow Barbarian. That's going to be that one, the one where I posted previously. Anyway, not sure if you can look through those chronologically or not, but it's the one previous. So anyway, thanks for stopping by. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.